How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another Black Desert Online Ranger guide video. Now, I did debate making this video or not because it has been a while, and the reason it's been a while, as most of you will know, is the crazy quote-unquote balance changes PA has been making to the game every week. At one point, something changed. More recently, it looks like they may be doing individual class balance changes, but I keep getting asked for these videos. Ultimately, this video will just be sort of a temporary filler video until they change whatever they're going to change. As I make this video, this next maintenance should bring, at least if we get the Korean patch, significant buffs to Musa and Meiwa. So we'll have to see whether Ranger is also in line for some of those changes. I really hope so, but as it is, this is how the current state of Ranger is and how to get by. So I'll try not to make this too much of an opinion piece, as of course you get enough of that on the stream as it is, but I will hopefully be able to help some of you guys new to Ranger or just struggling. I'm not sure entirely what to do. I don't have all the answers, but hopefully I can help some way to maybe make life a little bit easier. So the first thing you're going to see me do here is lock my Black Spirit Rage. That's because it's way more potent to absorb the Black Spirit Rage with Z once you get 100%, and this will allow you to get a huge buff to attack speed and damage. So it's much more useful than being able to clear basically one pack with your 100% skills. So Alt plus B is to lock that. It's very important that you do that because it'll boost your grind speed. I'm pretty lazy with it here, but in history I'm like completely on point. I make sure that's cycled as soon as it's ready to go. You can also use your awakening buff. I highly recommend it, especially just to like try to time it when you need to get to a new pack quickly. But otherwise, if there's no gap between the packs, then you just want to kind of use it as soon as it's off cooldown, because it'll speed up your attack speed significantly, and therefore your clear speed as well. So that's two things you want to keep in mind. Now, Ranger grinding now is a lot slower than it was. The reason for that is, one, they nerfed Will of the Wind. But at spots like that, it's not really a huge deal that Will of the Wind was nerfed. It was a significant nerf, and I'm pretty sure we're the only class that did receive a PvE nerf. But mainly it affects areas at the endgame spots where Ranger is now significantly slower than most classes. So you do need to be aware of that, but in these kind of spots, it's not going to bother you too much. What will bother you is the stamina changes. The bow skills cost significantly more stamina than they did before, as well as our dash, which is the main problem, was moved from mana to stamina. This change makes 0 sense for the class and significantly limits the PvP capacity as well as the PvE capacity. It's, in my opinion, a very poor change. A lot of classes also receive big stamina nerfs. Unfortunately, our stamina nerfs affect both our mobility and our attacks. And it is quite a significant change and quite a hurdle to get over. You're going to be quite slow compared to other classes at these spots, not because you don't do enough damage, but simply because you can't move between the packs quickly enough. So as a result, it's something you're just going to have to get used to for now. Hopefully there will be changes. I don't like the idea of stamina being an artificial limit on how actively you can play your class. It would be one thing if you could cleverly manage it, but you simply can't. So you have to deal with it. Don't spam dash too much, in other words. You want to try and... I mean, you can use waltz to get between packs, but it's going to cost you mana, and it's quite slow and also looks really stupid. So the skills that you'll see me rotate mostly here, and I'm only showing you... I'm talking through this because this is me using my gear, which is very good gear. And also, I'm level 62, so obviously I have all the skills up to level 60, including all the absolute skills that I might want. So you may not have all these, so I'm going to talk through that. I'm going to do another rotation here where I take off my gear or all my accessories to lower my AP significantly, so you can see a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit more about the skills that we use, but I just wanted to sort of explain the Ranger's situation, so to speak, so you get a little bit of idea what challenges you're going to have to overcome. So here you can see I'm taking off my accessories, and this is just basically to show you with much less AP, 160 awakened and 166 bow AP, what grinding would be like with max skills. Unfortunately, I don't have a skill reset, otherwise I'd probably reset the skills so you guys see a little bit better idea on the lower, maybe like level 58 or so without all the fully trained skills. But hopefully at least with the lowered AP you get some kind of idea. So the things you want to cycle between are a lot of Waltz of Wind into Breezy Blade Rushing Wind, as well as your bow skills. Now, the bow skills aren't going to be as potent. If you're level 58, you'll have at least Absolute Will the Wind, which you should use when it comes off cooldown. And then you just do a quick shotgun or something. Now, your shotgun won't be great. It's non-absolute version of shotgun. It really isn't that powerful. The problem it has is it has split damage. And the absolute version does have split damage, but because it has significantly more scaling, it just doesn't really matter on these kind of mobs that it has split. I mean, it does matter on endgame mobs because the split, it just doesn't overcome the mobs. Because these mobs are generally far less hit points, it doesn't really matter that it has split of the absolute. But the pre-absolute version, not so great. So I wouldn't spam it too much, but it is there for you to use it. If you have the skill Piercing Wind, which I believe you get at level 58, this will help you significantly. You can come out of, you can see I do a lot of like shotgun out of various skills, such as Breezy Blade, Rushing Wind, Waltz of Wind, and, well, yeah, those. What you'll often see me do is I'll use Vine Knot into Waltz of Wind. This is when you see me go up quite high in the air. Basically what that does is two things. One, it does quite a lot of damage to the pack. Two, it allows me to give myself an attack speed buff from Vine Knot. And the third thing is that it allows me to also get into shotgun from that. Now, if you're level 60, that's great. If you're level, I don't know, 59 or lower, maybe it's not as great, but you can still do it if you want, or you could stop short and just stay in the awakened form. It's just a good way to get into shotgun, though. So you should know how to use Piercing Wind and practice with Piercing Wind. It's very useful. It also has some PvP use as well. So definitely something you want to get used to using. So aside from the spammable skills between the bow and also with the awakening, what you'll see is me use the Awaken and Nuke skills. The two main ones are basically that Nature's Tremble, which is very long cooldown, but very powerful. And also Elven Rage and its Flow Disillusion. Disillusion basically is just this here, adding extra damage at the end of Elven Rage. And even with low AP, it should be enough to clear most of these guys out, no problem. That's Regeneration, level 59 skill. It's very useful to get, quite a bit of damage out, as well as also giving you a little bit of mana back if you're a little bit short. Now that's Wailing Wind plus the Flow Tempest. It is actually quite powerful, but it's very slow. So the main usage you'll have for it is actually getting your mana back. Not so much Tempest, but Wailing Wind gives you quite a lot of mana back. So if you want to use it in that capacity, you can. Otherwise, it's quite slow, and I don't know that you desperately need to use it, but it's just there for you to use if you so choose. So yeah, that's pretty much the cycling you'll need to get used to doing. Remember, when your nuke skills are off cooldown, that's Nature's Tremble and Elven Rage plus its Flow. And then after that, just use a lot of Waltz of Wind, Breezy Blade. You don't spam Waltz of Wind too much. Killing low HP mobs, fine, no problem, but don't get in a habit of using too much Waltz of Wind. It's not a good habit to be in, and yeah, it has maybe some damage issues, especially when it's on cooldown. So I don't know that I would use too much of it. So try to get used to using the other skills in between. It's also nice to practice the bow skills, because even if you don't have the absolute versions, it's very useful to have them practiced and ready to go, especially when you do hit level 60, because knowing how to swap into shotgun both from the bow and from the awakening form with Piercing Wind is very, very important. So you can see me using Piercing Wind there to get out of Waltz of Wind while I'm midair from Vine Knot. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, the main thing you're gonna have to worry about is don't use too much stamina by spamming dash. Other classes can spam dash and then they use other resources to attack. We can't do that so much. You can try a little bit. You can use mana only skills on the awakening, although that limits your DPS quite a lot. And we just don't clear well that way. You have to use quite a lot, including the bow skills. Plus, unfortunately, some of our awakening also has stamina on it, such as Breezy Blade. Yay! So yeah, just be careful. I mean, there's not much else to say about that. I mean, without me getting into a rant about how terrible it is. So yeah, just don't spam too much dash because it is gonna basically just drain so fast between using the dash and using bow skills / some awakening skills. So you want to be careful about using that. You will be moving quite slow between the packs, but not like horrifically slow. But that's just what we have to put up with for now. If you want to grind. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, try to use a little bit of each and every type of skill that you have. You have quite a lot of skills that you can cycle through. So put them to work. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to have all of these as you start out, but you will eventually. So it's useful just to come back and check, I guess, if nothing's really changed. That's just me messing around with Piercing Wind. Sorry, Penetrating Wind. You can get Penetrating Wind, by the way, if you want. It's extra skill points. It is quite a good skill. It's a long-range DPS skill. Seol has a very good video on it. I can link it if you are interested. But personally, I don't use it all that often, especially when grinding. I don't feel it's really that necessary. But just giving you more options to consider if you are inclined. So yeah, that's the grinding portion done. Let's move to PvP. So, gonna keep it short, sweet, and very simple. So, after a knockdown, you can use Vine Knot to get air smash and air attack on an opponent that is on the floor. It'll significantly increase the amount of damage, and then, of course, you can waltz straight out of that into Piercing Wind and then Shotgun, which is very good. If you knock someone down with, say, Q cancel using the long-range knockdown of the bow, then you can go in and grapple to extend the cooldown. Just be careful what you use. Make sure you know the CC rules. But you can use the grapple again to extend a knockdown. So important to remember that you can still do that. I took off my gear, by the way, because I was doing too much damage. Elven Rage doesn't knock down, but Disillusion does. Elven Rage is the one that protected. You have to be careful because it is very long cast time, but you can use Disillusion when someone is out of protected stance to knock down. So that's just showing you have to be very careful how long you wait till you can use Regeneration's down smash. If you wait too long, the target will simply get up. There's showing that actually successful. I have almost no AP, that's why he's surviving these knockdowns. He was making fun of my Will of the Wind damage. He didn't realize I took off my gear, so I just showed him that, yeah, Will of the Wind. Still very powerful skill, Will of the Wind. Its damage reduction only applies to PvE, not PvP. So as you can see here, you can walk backwards. If you didn't already know, you should already know. But you should try to abuse this as much as possible. We've never had anything like this as a ranger. Best thing we had was sitting in Vine Knot super armor, which I miss a lot. But the walking backwards block is pretty decent. And you can play a lot of things out of it, such as, obviously your grapple. You can also dash backwards, which is an iframe, and then go into Breezy Blade and Rushing Wind or something to get to a target. And this is to show you Call from Sky, which was absolutely gaped by Pearl Abyss, and that's me messing Call from Sky up. But this is quick cast Call from Sky. You can see that it has no damage reduction. So yeah, it is a super armor. You don't get CC'd, but you do get gaped because it doesn't minimize any damage anymore, which is a real shame considering it still costs 250 stamina to activate. So be very careful when using Call from Sky, especially against Lawns, because they have a range grapple and they will grapple you out of Call from Sky. If I see another ranger use Call from Sky, I just kind of shotgun and I just see them die, and it's really very sad. Unfortunately, yeah, change I'm very sad about, because Call from Sky is actually quite a skill capped ability. It requires very precise presses to actually activate properly. As you can see, I messed it up at one point on that clip previously. So yes, just be careful with that. So yeah, that wraps up the video, guys. I hope it was helpful to you. Maybe it answers some of your questions. If you didn't, or if you have some more questions, feel free to leave questions in the comment section, or you can, even better, come by the stream and ask questions, because then I can answer your question. If you have follow-up questions, it's much easier to do it that way. I don't get comment notifications, so I have to manually check YouTube comments. I try to do that, but otherwise. I also recommend joining the Ranger Discord if you haven't already. You can ask questions in there, and people are very, very helpful as well. If you're curious about Penetrating Wind, Seol has a very, very good video on it. You can probably just type Seol video into YouTube, and you'll easily find it. I highly recommend you checking that out as well. But yeah, like I said, this is just a quick temporary guide. Not a whole lot of detail, but hopefully it did go over some of the points that you may be interested in. PvP-wise, unfortunately, Ranger right now is just very one-dimensional, I guess is the way to put it. It's a shame that, you know, I look at PvP now and I look at Young's old videos, you know, when before the changes, and it's just night and day in the difference in what you could do with the class. So hopefully they will. I mean, the best thing for me would be to revert, but I don't think they'd ever do that. They've got far too much pride. So all we can hope for is that buffs to Ranger come and that they bring it back to a fun playstyle like it was before. So yeah, thank you for watching the video. I don't want to get into a rant at the end of the video about that. So hopefully I'll catch you guys on the next one.